Hello, magical creatures, and welcome back to another episode of Around the Cauldron. As you can tell, this one's a little different, a little spooky, because we're on part 2 of our series of Tales from the Cauldron. I encourage you to sit somewhere quiet, light a candle, pray for protection, lock the doors, and when you walk past the mirror, don't look. You might see something you regret. Dad joke. These stories are true, mostly true, but really you be the judge. Most people get goosebumps, chills, or they think they see something out of the corner of their eyes. But all credit to the authors of these stories. Thank you to my 2 listeners that sent in their tales from their childhood who wished to remain anonymous. I am looking forward to scaring the crap out of everybody with your stories. So here we go. Gather around for Tales from the Cauldron.
My house was built in 1904. It is a single-family home, wood frame, sitting on a concrete block foundation. I've been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and me have seen or heard in this house, this one event is my favorite. This happened to my brother about 10 years ago. My brother and his best friend had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock, alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons, and they would practice into the early evening, and they would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time that I usually showed up and went to bed because I worked the graveyard shift. This all happened in the late fall, so the days were getting shorter, and they had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filled out of the basement, but the tricky part was that they needed to walk all the way to the back of the basement, up the back stairs, through the kitchen doorway, and down the hall into the living room, and out into the front porch. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on a speaker in the basement. He made the decision to go back. Now the basement is not clean, with full sight lines. There had been partitions made, and the boiler and main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So after my brother walks back, he's about to retrieve his food container when out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It is a shadowy figure right at his peripheral vision. This feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over my brother. We had been taught that if you were in the presence of a spirit or a ghost and you felt a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer or to cuss at it. My brother chose the latter, and he basically just told it, "Hey, fuck you, I don't have time for this shit." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing doors, turning off lights, and as he was walking out, there was a switch at the opposite side of the front door. It was the last switch. And luckily, the door was open, and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber glow. My brother said that he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last switch in the living room, it went dark, and so did the rest of the house. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him. Still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard but no rear garage. And as he closed the gap between himself and his friend-laden truck, he kind of smiled and thought things over in his head. He was mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, put on his seatbelt, got ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house when one of his friends asked him, "Hey, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" My brother responded, What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Do you see his car anywhere? The next question they asked. So, then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?
In August 1971, a group of hippies camped inside of Stonehenge, which at that time it was allowed. So you would often see travelers, backpackers, and many a type staying within these hollowed spaces. This particular group, though, was there to smoke weed, spend the night, drink, do the typical free love types of things that had carried over from the late 60s. Around 2 a.m, a horrible thunderstorm had came, and it was accompanied, of course, by severe lightning and high winds. People questioned the safety of the hippies within the circle, since they were exposed to the elements. And 2 witnesses, a policeman and a farmer, at one point in the night saw a bolt of lightning strike the Stonehenge stones, covering the entire area in a strange blue light that became so bright they couldn't look at it. Many thought that this was a natural phenomenon because, as we know, a strike of lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun and can emanate a very bright light for a short amount of time. But right after the lightning struck, they could hear the hippie campers screaming. They just kept screaming. When it was all over, the officer and the farmer ran over to help and also brought others that were nearby to assist them, assuming that someone had been injured or burned, yet they found no one. An entire group of people gone, vanished, just like the Neolithic builders of the famous monument. Was it aliens? Was it spontaneous combustion? Was it something else? Nobody knows, but many stories surround the tale of Stonehenge and what its purpose was, its alignment with the stars, its alignment with the seasons, that it is a gateway, a portal, a place to go in between worlds and dimensions. From the sound of it, though, these hippies didn't really want to go anywhere. Who knows? This next story came in from an anonymous user. It states, working in border towns, there's a lot of highways and ranches, and at night it gets quite dark. I'm talking about the type of darkness where you can't see your hand in front of your face. I mean, think of the darkest dark you've ever been in, and add a little bit more. So one evening, while I'm driving along the highway, and the only light source is the one coming from my high beams, so I don't mistakenly run over any animals, I see about 150 meters in front of me a man just bolts across the highway, and he jumps into the ranch. Next, I pull over to the area that I last saw him, and I turn on my flashlight to scan the road, scan the field, scan everything. While looking, all that I was thinking was, God, it smells horrible, like something had died. I brushed it off as normal, though, because working this job, there's all types of wildlife, and several things do die constantly. It's just the circle of life. After maybe about 5 minutes of scanning for this person, I saw the man laying down with his hoodie covering his head, hiding behind some bushes. Now, I'm assuming it was a man, just based on his build, so I present myself and identify myself as law enforcement, and I command him in English and then in Spanish to stand up because I see him, and then he doesn't budge an inch. I get a little closer to the man, and I proceed to grab his shoulder, and I turn him around. But that's when I jumped back and I gasped in disbelief because the man was deceased. I had just touched a dead man. When the coroner arrived, they said that this man had been dead for at least 2 days or more. So it wasn't possible that I had just seen him run across the street. There's no way that he had just dropped dead. This ultimately just led me to believe that this man's spirit wanted me to find his body. And I did. The story kind of reminds me of when I was younger and I lived in Ohio. My brothers and I were sitting in the living room, and there's a window that faces the driveway of the living room. We all heard what sounded like footsteps on the gravel of the driveway, and we were watching TV, and the TV was kind of next to the window. We heard the footsteps. Nobody said anything. I thought maybe it was just me. And I saw what appeared to be the side profile of somebody in a white striped shirt, and I could see the profile of their neck, the side of their face, and their hair. And then they just dissipated and walked by to the other side of the window. But we could still hear them walking on the gravel as if there were footsteps. This all happened in less than 5 seconds. And for my brain to process what I had just witnessed, I immediately thought, holy shit, that was my grandfather. But my grandfather had been dead for at least a month by this point. So I sat there stunned with the TV still going and the movie still playing that we were watching. And all I said out loud was, did anyone else see that? And then we all chimed in with, oh my God, I thought I was the only person. You saw it too? I think it was Grandpa. It was very comforting, but also very unnerving to hear somebody's footsteps, to know that they no longer have a physical body, and then for there to be absolutely nothing there that you can see with your eyes. In 1974, which is when Doris first spoke of her problem with a paranormal investigator, Dr. Barry Taff, and his associate Carrie Gaynor, Doris at the time was a young single mother in her 30s. A string of abusive relationships took their toll on her, driving her to suffer emotionally and seek the solace of alcohol. This put a strain on her relationship with her 4 children. Doris had a girl, 6 years old, and 3 boys, 10, 13, and 16 years old, by 4 different fathers. Doris had overheard the men discuss paranormal occurrences at a bookstore, so she invited them to come by her place as she believed that it was haunted. It wasn't until the investigators got there that she told them that she had been sexually assaulted by a trio of violent entities. It was the only way that she knew how to describe them. She stated that the smallest 2 of these beings would hold her down, while the tallest one would proceed to rape her. The troubled woman's eldest child tried intervening once while this was happening to her mother, and claims to have been tossed around the room, but was thrown across the room and broke his arm. Now, this was the first time Dr. Taff and Gaynor had heard of spectral rape. However, their doubts disappeared once they saw the bruises on her inner thighs and all over her body. Doris's neighbors also testified to seeing apparitions moving around the house, and the children too had seen these beings. In fact, they appeared so frequently that one of the children dubbed the most prominent one as Mr. Who's It. Paranormal investigation of Doris Bither's house was located in Los Angeles, where the haunting took place. Deciding to see this story through, the paranormal investigators called in their team and set up their equipment to detect manifestations. According to their report, Doris was instructed to summon the beings, so she began swearing and yelling at them. Suddenly, lights manifested around the room. As she continued hurling abuses, a green mist swirled from a corner and started growing to form the muscular upper torso of a man. Despite their equipment, investigators managed to only capture a free-floating arc on top of Doris as she sat on her bed. Interviewing the whole family, the investigator found that the entities lashed out at certain songs, such as ones of Black Sabbath and other metal music. Moreover, it seemed that the entities were growing stronger due to the emotional issues surrounding each member of the family. However, the paranormal activities were strongest whenever Doris herself was present in the home. Despite leaving that house, Doris claimed that the entities followed her every time she and her family members moved. She even claimed that she became pregnant due to the spectral rape. But medical tests showed that she was suffering from an ectopic pregnancy. After the late 80s, Doris was no longer heard from or heard of, and her son, however, did come forward with an interview in 2009, which is when the world found out that Doris had passed away from pulmonary arrest in 1995. Now, after doing some of my own research and Googling and searching, it appears that there are certain parts about this story that were debunked, and we unfortunately have a case of photographical evidence of spirit phenomenon, but a woman who was definitely tortured by her experiences and her addiction to alcohol. The reason why I bring this up is because I feel it's important to let all of you know who listen that during times of hardship, pain, trauma, abuse, we have to do things that require healing and recovery and rehabilitation. And unfortunately, when we are at those low points in our life, there might be people out there who claim to be psychic or who are ghost hunters or who are investigators or researchers. Always have somebody that you trust to be your beacon of truth, to scope these people out and to make sure that they don't take advantage of a situation. Because the last thing that we need to see is another woman or another man who's gone through trauma and pain and hurt be taken advantage of and exposed in a way that makes them look like they're crazy and they're making these things up. That's just my opinion, so use caution. Provided in the information on this podcast, I have also listed the 1-800 numbers and the toll-free lines for the domestic violence assistance, as well as the National Helpline for Substance Abuse. I feel it's important to know that there are resources available if you don't have anyone that you can reach out to. So get help if you can. So please be safe out there, use caution, protect yourselves, know where you are, keep your wits about you. And also, just as a friendly reminder, this show is led by user support and encouragement, so if you would like to leave me a review, if you would like to also leave me a message, you can go to the website link that is provided in the description of all of these episodes. Send me a memo, let me know about a ghost story from your past, tell me about a topic that you would love to hear me cover. I will be featuring more of my interviews from my live stream series that I've done on Instagram, and those will cover things talking about past lives, regression, hypnosis, you name it. But I would love to hear from you. You can also go to my website and fill out a contact form at www.zachariahthewitch if you would like to contact me that way. Otherwise, be safe, be magical, and I will see you around the cauldron. briefly, I wanted to share this short but sweet voice memo from one of our listeners named Marzia. Thank you for your message.
Magnificent, Zachariah.